Hi, everyone. Welcome back from break. I hope you got some you time and some relaxation and recharged a little bit. I want to talk a little bit today about food advertising and maybe some of the foods that you ate way too much of over the last week. Make sure that you have done the readings as well as listened to this lecture before you take the quiz or complete the discussion board, or you will have a very difficult time. I'm not going to give you enough to do either one of those by itself. The authors separate advertised foods into 5 categories, and they are listed here in front of you. Make sure you diagnose which of these your advertisement fits and also cite the appropriate article from this week. Now, the techniques are multifaceted. There's lots of ways that advertisers try to attract their audience to their product to get them to buy more. We're going to talk about a few that were listed in the readings. We won't cover all of them, so feel free to use any of those from the readings to complete your assignments for this week. But I do want to give you a couple examples of how this works in real time. Think about when advertisers run their ads, whether they run them during cartoon time or prime time. During cartoon time, you see almost entirely all food ads are focused on snacks or on sugary cereals, whereas during prime time, most food ads are focused on fatty, salty snacks and fast food. Now let's talk a little bit about part 2 of the reading, where the authors discuss the claims that companies are allowed to make in their advertising. They use the example of Coke's vitamin water and how it has 31 grams of sugar in it, and yet time and again, advertisements were used to get the consumer thinking about things like health and vitality, and these concepts and terms were sort of attached to vitamin water, even though they never explicitly said it is one of the healthiest products you can drink. It was implied. And we'll see that this works throughout. One of the other ways that visual claims happen in product placement is through showing things that you never actually explicitly say. And in this case, bonkers and fruit are sort of conflated. There's no fruit in bonkers candy. All right, placement, fruit not included. This is an interesting thing to consider for your advertisement. You should look at this as well. This idea that often products are added to cereal to sell it and make it look healthier than it actually is. And there's no law that says producers have to say fruit not included. They just show often their cereal with fruit, and they'll say something like part of a healthy, balanced breakfast. All right, I want to make a lot of your mouths water here. This is an example of what was discussed as food porn, and this should really give you an idea of how this affects the brain, often without us even realizing it's happening. And keep in mind that we now know that the producers of these advertisements go to every bit as much trouble as producers of any other advertisement to doll up their products. So these become sort of like glamorized photo shoots, just like any other product in capitalism. Context was something else that was discussed. What is going on in these advertisements while the product is being sold? And this is where we get into the changing of the United States landscape and how you can see that advertisements that used to focus on family life and identify women as stay-at-home mothers and men as sort of the breadwinners, which was a really patriarchal construction of culture, have now tried to weed those things out, but don't get it twisted. They're not weeding those things out because they are now moral and they've developed some sort of ethical standard. Instead, they're weeding those things out because they know that there's a certain group of people in the country that won't buy their product if they see these patriarchal images. So think about now what they're left with. They have to sell a product and they can't appeal to old patriarchal norms. So now we see kids always on the go. This actually ties in a lot with this idea of a healthy lifestyle, because most of these products cannot be advertised as healthy because they're not healthy, but they can be shown in a context where kids are active and playing, they're dancing, they're moving, and this has the twofold effect of producing an illusion of health alongside giving kids something to look at that is fun and exciting and a spectacle. They want to be a part of this. All right, now endorsements. This is where it gets really interesting. And for those of you that have been watching movies closely for a number of years, you've noticed that capitalistic producers have become more and more clever at sort of hiding their products, but it's still pretty obvious if you watch closely. This is a clip of Marshawn Lynch, who is obviously getting paid by Skittles because he does a good job of making them seem fun, and he attaches his identity to Skittles. Now, again, some companies go a lot further, and the article does a good job of building this web, this network, if you will, of powerful connections of money between Hollywood and fast food and sugary food consumers and producers. But think about how Burger King did this with this ad.
Choose your destiny at BK. Every game piece can win. Star Wars Episode 3 is in theaters May 19th.
Hey, pizza.
All right, just wait.
You can think of how Back to the Future tied Pepsi and Pizza Hut specifically, along with Black and Decker in this specific scene, to the affect that their movie produced, and it ended up being a historical cultural icon. So this had an even greater effect than you otherwise would have thought. But there you go, boom, the beautiful pizza in Hollywood. And then Pizza Hut came along and parlayed this. It was around holiday season, and they were thinking that capitalism says buy gifts, right?
So tonight on your way home, stop off at Pizza Hut and pick up a hot, delicious Pizza Hut pizza to go. And at the same time, go back to the future for a great stocking stuffer.
Now, what these glasses have to do with pizza, I'm not sure, but this gimmick worked, and a lot of people bought these.
But hurry, they're going like there's no tomorrow.
So I've given you just a few things to think about when it comes to how advertisers use images and ideas to sell you products. Now it's your turn. I want you to use the things that were in this video to get you thinking about your discussion post.